Hello, and welcome to this edition of AB to Z. I'm Seamus.
And I'm Cam. Here's what's happening around the AB community.
On Wednesday, January 9th, former Boston Celtic Chris Herron spoke at the high school about his battle with drug addiction, how he turned his life around, and how sobriety and family comes above all else.
Chris Herron's life has been the subject of an ESPN documentary, and today travels the country sharing his story with high school and college students and even NFL teams.
Here with more on Herron's visit and reaction from the AB community is Tyler St. Lawrence.
Recently, former college standout and NBA basketball player Chris Herron came to AB to give a very powerful and moving speech. Over 1,000 students, teachers, and parents came to witness this great event. I talked to Ms. Hool, who was at the event, about how she thought it went and if she thinks students got something out of it.
I think sheer numbers gives us a good indication that it was a very popular experience to come out and listen. I think by the attentiveness of the community and the people that were there and the questions that were asked after, I think that people really saw it as a meaningful experience. I think kids learned important information and took some lessons away. It's going to be telling in the next kind of couple days and weeks and months whether or not they were able to kind of take that information in and actually use it.
Dr. Callan also gave her opinion on how she thought the event went that night.
I thought it was just great. I thought he did a really good job telling his story, which I think was really accessible to students. I think it was something that they could, the way he told it, they could see it and imagine it. I also thought he did a fantastic job answering questions and really helping people to realize things they could do that could help them in the future and to make good choices going forward.
Beginning in the fall of 2014, there could be a major change in our two communities. There is a proposal on the table to regionalize the Acton and Boxborough school districts in grades K through 12.
But this plan still has some major hurdles to get over. Recently, our Andrew Kern sat down with Acton-Boxborough Regional High School District Superintendent Dr. Stephen Mills to talk more about the proposal.
Superintendent of Schools, talking about regionalization of Boxborough with Acton. Dr. Mills, how did the idea of regionalization first come about and how do you support it?
Sure, Andrew. Thank you. First of all, it's great to be on your show again. Actually, it's been explored. It was like 15 years ago, I believe. There was some interest in looking at regionalizing K to 12. As you know, we're currently regionalized 7 to 12, the junior high and the high school. But up until now, at least, the governmental structures are such that Boxborough has its own elementary school, its own superintendent, its own school committee. And then they join the region when the kids get to the junior high and 7th grade. I think more recently, in the past year or two, there's been a lot of interest, particularly from Boxborough, because they have a demographic issue where they have a decreasing enrollment over the next 5 or 10 years. So they're really in a position they have to do something. They really need to either regionalize K to 12 with Acton, or if they don't do that, they'll probably accept a lot more school choice students in, which we here at this regional level would get anyway eventually. So either way, there's going to be an impact for the current Acton-Boxborough Regional School District. Do I support it? Yes, I do. And I fully respect that people disagree about the subject. Some people support it, others not so much. But one of the criticisms of government, local, state, and federal, is that it's inefficient. There's a duplication of services, things of that nature. There's a lot of that here. I have, for instance, 2 payroll departments, one for Acton Public and one for Acton-Boxborough Regional, a purchasing department, all within the business office. And then Boxborough has its own. So really there's 3. Right now there's 3 different payroll offices, purchasing offices, things of that nature. That is just duplicative. It's inefficient. You know, we could regionalize and become one system where we just need one of those things. So there's a potential for quite a bit of cost savings. The study committee is talking about maybe $600,000 or $700,000 a year. And I certainly agree with that. So I think, from my perspective, it makes eminent sense. So I'm hopeful. April 29th, actually, there's going to be 2 simultaneous town meetings, one here in Acton and one in Boxborough. And the people of the 2 towns will eventually decide this on April 29th.
So how will the system work? And will kids from both schools immediately have access to all the schools or both towns?
Yeah, the very short answer to that question is yes. However, you know, there is already a process in my office for the 5 Acton schools where there is school choice. We tremendously value school choice here in Acton. I see nothing but even improving the opportunity for choice if Blanchard joins the 5 Acton Elementary Schools. But people are pretty much tied in and dug into their schools. There's tremendous pride in each of the 5 elementary schools in Acton, certainly a lot of pride in the Blanchard Elementary School. So I don't think you're going to be seeing people running off to some other school immediately. But yes, in short, they'll have the opportunity to if they would like to do that. Yeah.
What do you see as the benefits of regionalization, and would it save the town money? Or?
Yes. As I mentioned just before, there's a lot of duplication currently. We could reduce the superintendent position, a business manager position, a special ed director position. Those positions are required if you have your own school district. Boxborough currently has its own separate school district, so those things are necessary, just as I said, according to state law, if you're going to have a district. But there's a lot, in addition to the kinds of things I mentioned just a few minutes ago about duplication, this might sound very boring to the average person out there, but it's my life. We have no less than 110 reports we're required by law every year to submit to the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education because of accountability, and I'm fine with that. The problem is, in my office, I have to do it twice, Acton Public School System, then Acton Boxborough Regional School System. Curtis Bates, the superintendent over in Boxborough, has to do it over there just for that one school. It's ridiculous. It's silliness. If we could do, instead of doing those, each of those 110 reports 3 times, if we could do them just once a year, that would free up a lot of my staff to do more direct service work with teachers and principals. So, yeah, I see a huge advantage to regionalizing. It'll save, again, the current estimates are somewhere around $600,000 to $700,000 a year.
Would parents still have the school choice option, and would elementary schools still have their own identities?
Yeah, absolutely, Andrew. I'm almost surprised at the concern that I'm hearing about that somehow things would change and things would be uniform everywhere. This is a great school system. I'm not bragging. I don't like to take personal credit for it, but what has made Acton the great school system that it is its choice. The fact that the schools are, by design, very different from each other. The 2 schools under the Parker Damon roof, those schools are very different in terms of philosophy, the way they approach education, the way they teach children, the way they assess student progress. Then you might see at a more traditional elementary school like the Conan School or the Douglas School. And that's fine. That's great. And parents can choose that. Blanchard would offer yet a 6th choice for Acton parents. Rather than 5 choices, you have 6. The Boxborough residents obviously have a huge advantage. They have no choice right now other than the one school, which they love and they're very proud of. But if they preferred a program over in Acton, they could avail themselves of that. So, no. I mean, as long as I'm superintendent, school choice is what this community is about. We value it. It defines who we are. And I would do nothing to ever discourage that. And I see this, as I just said, as an opportunity really for increased choice. Rather than choice of 5, to be a choice of 6. The Blanchard Elementary School has an outstanding elementary instrumental music program. Frankly, better than what we have in the 5 Acton elementary schools. So if there was an Acton family that very, very much valued music and instrumental instruction for their children, they could choose Blanchard. I think that's great. So no, I see the choice opportunities expanding with this regionalization, and I have never said anything in any way that would discourage uniqueness. I think, understandably, if you live in the town of Boxborough, I think people are concerned that the Blanchard Elementary School is going to get swallowed up into this larger system. But it doesn't happen now in Acton. Each of the 5 elementary schools are very different from each other, and I would continue that with the Blanchard School.
So would you still be the superintendent of both communities, and are you concerned with having that much work?
My last job, I was the deputy superintendent of Worcester Public Schools. Worcester is the 2nd largest school district in New England. I had 43 elementary schools. So, no, I'm not concerned about going from 5 elementary schools to 6 elementary schools. I need the corresponding staff support, which I think that I would have, but no, I'm not at all concerned about that. And I believe, without violating any confidences of Curtis Bates, the superintendent over there, we joked at one public meeting that would arm wrestle over who gets the job, but he and I both know, for private reasons, there's going to be no need for any arm wrestle. If there is to be a regionalization, then I'll be the superintendent of the 6 elementary schools.
So where's the process right now, and do you know when a final decision will be made?
Yes. So there's a study committee of 10, really 12 people. There's 10 people, 5 citizens of Acton, 5 citizens of Boxborough. Curtis Bates, the superintendent there in Boxborough, and myself are additional ex officio members. We don't vote on it. It's really the townspeople's representatives. That's been going on for about 1.5 years now. And as a matter of fact, there's a meeting this evening at the Blanchard School. We're meeting at 5:30 this evening, working through all the kind of logistical details of how this would work. So that study committee has formulated a document that's now out there in the public. for all townspeople in both communities to review and to look at and to take apart and criticize, et cetera. There's been a number of public forums already. Representatives from that study committee have gone around, for instance, to the various PTO groups, parent, teacher, student organization groups. There's been a couple meetings in the Acton Town Hall that actually have been really prominently attended. The League of Women Voters has had one forum. So right now, the study committee is kind of trying to educate and inform, I should say, the larger communities about what this is about and how it'll come to be. They'll finalize that document after they get all this community input over the next couple of months. And again, I keep repeating, I say this at every meeting I go to, please circle on your calendars April 29th. It's a Monday evening. There are two special town meetings. These are in addition to the regular annual town meetings. Acton has its regular town meeting. I think it's April 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday night. So about a month after that, on Monday night, there will be a special town meeting here in the high school auditorium for the residents of Acton. Peter Ashton, I believe, will present the recommendation of the committee. And that's exactly the same time and hour and date. Over at the Blanchard School will be a special town meeting in Boxborough, where Vince Amoruso, Boxborough resident and longtime member of this committee, he will present the propositions to the townspeople of Boxborough, and they'll both vote on it that same night. And both towns have to vote a majority vote, and if that happens, we move forward with the regionalization. It will still take, I need to point out, it'll still take another year of planning, even if the two town meetings approve it. It wouldn't start for next school year. It would start July of 2014. It'd be another year out after next year.
If it is approved, when would the regionalization start, or officially?
Yeah, it would start on July 1st. See, governments go by fiscal year. A calendar year is January 1 to December 31st. Excuse me. Government, local, state, and federal government operate on a fiscal year. That's July 1 through the following June 30th. It would go into effect on July 1st, 2014 for that school year. Right. So looking forward to it, actually.
Yep. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Andrew. Glad to be here, as always.
The A.B. Proscenium Circus Winter Musical is underway. Legally Blonde opened up to rave reviews on February 1st.
The fun, fast-paced comedy based on a movie of the same name featured 55 students on stage and countless other working behind the scenes. Shows will continue next weekend, February 8th and 9th.
Over the past 13 months, many of you have probably seen the signs throughout Acton and surrounding communities, Help Bring Bridget Home. Bridget is a husky who was escaped from her yard in Littleton in November 2011. And over a year later, Bridget's owner, Pat Panic, is not giving up hope.
She believes her dog is still alive, and she is determined to find her. Recently, Pat sat down and spoke with our Tom O'Hara. Here now is that exclusive interview.
I'm here with Pat Panic, owner of the dog Bridget, who has been missing for some time now. Pat, can you tell us about your dog?
Yeah, my dog was a rescue from down south, where she lived for almost 6 years as what they call a puppy mill mama. She was breeding stock for a puppy mill. And when they were done with her, they turned her into a high kill shelter where she was rescued by a group and brought up here so that I could have her. And I fell in love with her the first time I saw her picture, actually. So she was with me for a little more than 7 months when she got a wild hair, decided that instead of just doing her business outside at midnight for the last time, she would dig an itty-bitty little hole. You would not think a dog that size could get through a hole that was no bigger than this. But she did, and she left all sorts of hair behind, and she was so proud of herself when we saw her. So I got my other dog, and we walked down the street, and there she is at the corner on the common, and just all proud and all puffed up, and let's play was kind of what she was saying. But then she got spooked by a noise, and my dog that I had backed out of his collar and thank God ran home, but she took off in the other direction, and that was a year and 2 days ago.
All right, so how many sightings have been reported, and how often did they come in?
That's an interesting question. In the beginning, we had 30 sightings pretty rapidly, but it's hard to know because huskies are escape artists, and there are other huskies in Acton that escape. So it's hard to always know if it's her. And then we went through a real dry spell of almost 6 months where we heard absolutely nothing. And I was starting to think, well, I've got to make a decision. The year is coming up. I've got to make a decision. Am I going to continue with this? And Then on my birthday, the only thing that I wished for was a sighting of Bridget, which she was nice enough at 5:45 p.m. to provide. So we got the tracking dogs up, and they confirmed that it was indeed Bridget. And we've had several sightings, 5 or 6 sightings since then.
So when was the most recent sighting?
Thanksgiving morning.
Wow. So we understand there were some obstacles when you tried to put up signs around town.
Yeah.
Have you solved these problems, and can you put up any more signs?
Well, now that's a trick question. CBS came out because somebody told them about the problem I was having with the signs here in Acton. I've spent now over $10,000 in signs because it's been proven that 98% of the dogs that eventually come home, it's because of signage. So anyway, one of your selectmen here in town decided that after 3 months my dog was most likely dead. But he got a lot of flack for his attitude. So he came back through the back doors or behind the scenes and said that I could, as long as I left them up only for a reasonable time and dated them, I could put them up. That has not transpired. Every time I put up signs within 48 hours, they're all down. And sometimes we're talking 250 signs because I put so many up because I'm hoping that they'll miss a couple.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're really thorough.
So we've heard about some possible new leads in a dog searching team that has come in. Can you tell us more about that?
Yes, I've been in April because there were so many huskies around. I needed to know which sightings were my dogs, so I contacted Karen Tarquin, who is the Animal Planet's pet detective, and she has a business called Lost Pet Professionals. So she and a couple of her trainees came up, and she told me, she says, not all of these sightings can be Bridget. Well, every single one of them that she checked out was Bridget.
Wow.
So we were able to know what area to focus the signage in instead of spreading it all over Maynard, Stowe, Concord, Boxborough. We kind of knew where she was. And she's still kind of in that area.
Yeah. So what leads you to believe that Bridget is still out there?
Because people have seen her.
Yeah. How long will you keep looking?
Until I have a body or a collar, or I know that she's too old to have survived. She's going to turn 8 in just 3 days. So she's got a little life left in her, but she's kind of skinny and dirty now, I'm told, but not a surprise.
Is there anything people can do now to help your cause?
Leave my signs up. Number 1, call me as soon as you see her, or you even think you see her. It doesn't even matter if you're not sure. It's important to have a timely sightings call so that we can get somebody out there. Probably we aren't going to see her, but at least we can get information about exactly where. So if I need to bring the tracking dogs back, they know where to start to see if it's her or not. So that would really help, and just talk about her. Let people know that she is skinny and dirty and described as filthy and mangy and very thin and looking a little distressed. So she doesn't look like that picture or that picture. She doesn't look like that anymore. She's kind of matted, and you can't see her markings that well, and she's dirty and skinny.
Right. Yeah, well, thanks for joining us, Pat, and we hope that you find Bridget.
Thank you, Tom.
In other news, the high school will hold an 8th grade parents information night on Wednesday, February 6th at 7 p.m. in the high school auditorium. All parents of current 8th graders are welcome to attend.
The counseling department will be hosting the annual college night for juniors and their parents on Wednesday, February 13th at 7 p.m.
Parents and students will meet with individual counselors to ask questions and begin to discuss post-high school plans.
In sports, the boys basketball team currently has a record of 6-7 and is fighting for a tournament berth. Recently, they defeated DCL large rival Boston Latin 60-47. AB was led by sophomore Reed Larson, who had a career-high 29 points.
The boys and girls alpine ski teams recently swept Westford Academy in a race at Neshoba Valley. For the boys, Robbie Ringwald led the way with 2 outstanding runs. Meanwhile, freshman Kirsten Team helped propel the girls to victory.
Well, that does it for our show. I'm Cam.
And I'm Seamus. Thanks for watching.